smaller than the metropolitan area of London and smaller than the metropolitan area of Sydney. All right, that's how small we are. But we are a country as well with lots of needs, all right, from housing, recreation, transport, air hubs, water. And it is very important for us to develop in a very holistic, sustainable manner, taking into consideration a very balanced approach of economic, social, and environmental considerations in the light of all our land and sea constraints, climate change, energy, and other resource constraints. What have we done well? Well, in terms of economic development, of course, we have an extremely high GDP per capita. When I saw this slide, I thought the statistic was wrong, but actually it was correct. We actually have a very high GDP per capita, even higher than many of the developed countries. And I had a look at the median monthly wage. I think since about 2006, after the SARS episode, median wage has increased by about 3.3% per annum. So economically, we have done well. We are pretty safe. Our crime rates have been dropping. And actually, we have a much lower homicide rate than, say, New York and Bangkok. I had some friends from New York here. And if you look at Mercer's global ranking, we're pretty good in personal safety, ranked as one of the world's safest cities, and we have a very well-ranked police force. Now, housing, of course, in any city is very, very important. I felt it even more so now that I'm in HDB, Housing Development Board. If you look at Singapore's situation in 1959, many of our parents actually lived in squatter colonies and city slums. But in a matter of time, we built public housing in the 60s, the 80s, and today, it has come a very, very long way. This is the Pinnacle at Duxton, one of our latest projects. And you find that in Singapore is very unique. 83% of our population is housed in public housing, and 95% own their own homes, with only about 5% rental. This is very, very unusual because most of the models in other cities is more rental for social housing and less home ownership. But creating a good city is also about giving a lot of variety of housing, which we have also done through our planning. So, as a result, Singapore has more than 90% home ownership rate compared to many countries in the rest of the world. What about the physical environment of Singapore? Well, one of the key things that we've done well is to take a very long-term approach to comprehensive planning. And as a result, I'm not going to go into the detail because that would take quite a long time, all right? As a result, I think we have quite a beautiful city of both a juxtaposition of the old and the new. What about Singapore as a garden city? I think we've moved away from garden city into saying we're trying to be a city in a garden. Now, in 1986, with a population of 2.7 million, the green cover was about 35%. By 2007, the population doubled, but the green cover increased. All right, I think this is very good, except that I'm afraid we are under a bit of threat in the green cover. We're losing some of it, so we've got to do something about it. Now, there are a lot of plans by my colleagues in NParks and URA to put in a lot of parks. There are 360 parks and counting, and we have this extensive park connector network, which we will increase from 200 kilometers to 360 kilometers. And we have beautiful gardens, signature gardens, like the gardens by the bay. We have linked up the southern ridges using beautiful bridges to create virtual space and hill parks. We have brought the greenery from the ground up to the buildings because we try to replace the greenery even as we remove them from the ground. We have to put it above through vertical greenery. A lot of the canalized streams we're trying to soften again and to bring back a more natural way of dealing with floods. Chye is the expert in this. I'm just borrowing what he used to do. And you have a great quality environment. This is Bishan, you know. You haven't been there cycling, please go there. It's really beautiful. And there's real fish inside. Now, apart from a very manicured city, we also kept a lot of the greenery. Of course, we can debate how much to keep. But NParks has done a great job in keeping some of the wetland reserves and some of the bird watching areas. If you haven't done that, go and visit. This is in Sungai Buloh. And we have great a focus on biodiversity. As Prof. Koh has mentioned, NParks has developed a Singapore Biodiversity Index. We also take leisure very seriously. We even have a leisure plan. I'm not going to go into the detail, but suffice to say that URA looks very seriously at where we can go and have our recreation, all right? Now, public transport. I think we have a pretty good MRT system, even though you read in the papers that now and then it breaks down. Wait till you're in London or in some other city in the world. I think we still have a pretty good MRT system. And Singapore was one of the first cities in the world in 1970s to actually have congestion pricing and to manage the use of cars. Actually, highly draconian measures, all right? And of course, London managed to do it after that. But I think ours is probably the most stringent. Now, it's also about managing our resources well. We are a land-starved, resource-starved country. So we have to manage our land very well, and we do that through reclaiming land to create land. That's why Prof. Koh and myself have to go and fight to keep what we reclaim. We try to tap on underground spaces. We try to optimize the users by co-locating many users together to optimize the land. So the rock heavens, for example, are underground users that we've done, and we're going to do some in a much more extensive way. Water. I think the water story I don't need to repeat. It's quite amazing. From a country that is water-starved, we may actually move on to becoming fully self-sufficient in water by 2061. Correct, Teng Chye? Teng Chye was CEO of PUB. He knows all about this. So I'm not going to venture into explaining all this, all right? And we have now made 2/3 of Singapore a water catchment area, all right? Because we're able to process and recycle all water. Almost the whole of Singapore can be used to capture water. We have a very good waste management system, which I won't go into detail, but the strategies are pretty good. For a very small island, you have to get rid of your waste somewhere, and nobody's going to accept it when you export it to them. So we do a lot of incineration, and there are a lot of strategies by NEA in dealing with waste. Again, I won't go into that. I think if you want me to explain all this, I need 2 hours, but I don't have that. Energy management, we're doing quite well. We use a lot of gas, which is much cleaner than coal. We've almost removed all coal. We are now tapping on solar energy. HDB has an extensive program, all right? So we are looking into clean energy. Now, as a result, I think Singapore has performed really well in the Liveability Index, in global competitiveness, and even in change readiness. How ready are we to meet the challenges in future? So all the indices are available when you Google them, all right? But you can see that roughly they are all around the top 3, so I suppose that's not bad, all right? But what can we do better? Are we there yet? I think we are, as I mentioned, we are a very land-constrained and resource-constrained country. There's a lot more we will need to do to conserve land and to do better resource management in energy, water, and waste. We are only starting on this journey. I don't think we're there yet. In fact, I want to ask the question, does Tembusu College recycle your waste? Do you practice that? How many of you go home and bag all your rubbish and recycle and put them into the right bins downstairs? Prof. Koh said his wife, you see, they rely on the wife. You know, I was visiting a Japanese city. You know, we have trouble sorting rubbish into how many types? Actually, I only asked for 2 types, organic and non-organic. In some places, 3 types, maybe paper, plastics, and organic. The Japanese have sorted out into 15 types. Wow. So we have a long way to go, all right? And we love our cars, don't we? All right? The LTA annual vehicle statistics show that the number of cars have grown tremendously, and that's why we're having a lot of congestion problems on the road, and which LTA, the Ministry of Transport, is trying to rein in this growth. But how to improve public transport? The public transport mode share has actually decreased. In 1997, it was 67%. Then it dropped to 59% in 2008, and I'm so glad to hear that it's gone back up to 63% in 2012. We